Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. My name is May. I am Mai Vu Coach of the Bold Brave Women community and so much more. And with me is my collaborator, friend, client, supporter, amazing teacher, Miss Darla Mersman. And I'm so glad
Hello,
that we are.
everyone. It's great to
Yeah.
be here. Thank you.
Last week we did an episode on what was that homelessness, and I forget what we did last week that led to this week,
So
Dala.
we tackled law enforcement and mental
Yes,
illness. And
that's right.
this week we are tackling homelessness and mental illness.
Yes, and in no way do we say that we cover the thing in one episode. We just are what happened last week under the law enforcement conversation. It of course led us to this conversation of, and then what happened to people who are mentally ill or just are homeless and how that play together, how homelessness and mentally ill, it's like a hand in glove thing. On one hand, it's either a lot of people who end up homeless is because they are mentally ill and they can't hold a job, they can't function in society, so then they end up losing everything and out in the street. And then on the reverse, living out on the street when you're just in poverty because of the environment of this of how scary it is and how taxing being homeless is on your central nervous system, you actually over time develop mental illnesses too. And so it's a very tragic combination that keeps repeating itself. It's like an endless loop.
It is. It is. And we often have some entanglement going on there. And you talked about are homeless, mentally ill, and they can't function in society. And also, they can't function to take care of their own basic needs a lot of times with serious mental illness. That
Yeah.
is a big part of the homeless population.
Yeah.
So, not only are resources not available, but their ability to even advocate for themselves is absent in that state.
And this reminds me of your story. Like, I remember receiving a phone call from you somewhere at a payphone or some phone on a beach in San Diego. Even though I know you lived in Colorado, I'm like, oh my God. Will you tell us that story?
Yeah. Yeah. So, this story is really about my um, experience of being homeless and being mentally ill. And what happened to me was that I, once again, in my psychotic state, which is my 6.5 year history now,
Mm.
in my psychotic state, I would often destroy all of my technology so that people couldn't find me and track me.
Oh, right, because
So,
you were thinking that aliens and CIA were tracking you and going after you.
yeah, yeah. So I was in a very scary place, and I ended up in San Diego. And
How did
I
you end
talked
up in
about
San Diego?
I ended up in San Diego because I was on a wild adventure all over the Western United States, meeting up with people, doing things in this semi psychotic state that built into a heavy psychosis quickly.
Hmm.
And so I went through customs and
And
I
San
ended
Diego,
up at
just
the,
in case people are listening to this from around the world and they
yes,
don't know what that is, San Diego is the most southern state in California, which borders uh, Mexico.
yes. Yeah. So I'm traveling through heading to Los Angeles to visit some of my family and friends. And I end up in a gas station and I end up getting approached by a psychiatric special team of two people who came to check on me because they had reports that I wasn't quite right. And they approached me, and I was in a psychotic state, and I was able to communicate that I was experiencing these things that weren't actually going on in reality. So long story short, I ended up they took me to the emergency psychiatric unit, stayed there a little bit, and then I ended up longer term in the inpatient psychiatric hospital. So I was in a serious psychotic state, very, very out of touch with reality. And my family knew it, and they really wanted me to stay in the mental hospital. And I just was persistent to get out. And as a psychotherapist, I know what it takes to hold somebody in a hospital. And I knew what I had to say to them in order to get out.
Oh, like
So
what?
they had to release, like, I'm not suicidal, I'm not homicidal. I would tell them I didn't have delusions, that I was stable. I knew the right words,
So
and I
that's
knew
so
how to
crazy, right?
behave.
Like it sounded to me like your brain got ultra creative and ultra smart to destroy yourself. And so it took all the history and the knowledge. I mean, what an interesting uh, juxtaposition to be a psychotherapist armed with all the knowledge and the language and knowing the system and everything, and then to be in psychosis, to use that knowledge to get yourself, to feed your psychosis, to feed your quote unquote, we always do air quote crazy here, to mean that this is the street language to understand the state. You know, when I hear psychosis, I just kind of go
Right.
to sleep because it's so textbook like. I don't know what that is, but when you say crazy, I'm kind of like, crazy, I'm paying attention. So that's what I mean. I
Yeah,
don't
what does
mean it
that mean?
crazy as
Yeah.
in judgment that you were crazy, but it's just like that you were in this crazy state. Think the brain was making up all sorts of crazy, outrageous, outlandish stories that runs you. Meanwhile, it's so smart. It tapped into your studies and it used it get to get past these lock and keys of the system to keep you safe inside the rehab center or whatever center that you were at.
Yeah, yeah, the inpatient psychotic hospital is where it
The
was at, and
inpatient
I got
psychotic
myself out.
hospital. Oh my
Yeah. So to get to the place of how I ended up in a different situation was, so they had to release me from the hospital, and
God.
I didn't have a phone, and I didn't know where I was going except for that I had a rental car that they were holding for me. So I was trying to get to that rental car. And pretty soon I realized I didn't have any place to go. I had no
Mm.
help. So I met this man along the way, and we became friends, and he took me to my rental car, and I got my stuff out. And then we met another guy along the way,
Now,
and
when you say
we
you
were
met
talking.
this man along the way, are you saying you
I
met
was
another
walking.
homeless person or just any guy
No.
that's walking the street? A normal man
Yeah.
just walking the street and you just said, "Hi," using all
I'm
that you know
looking.
to turn on your charm?
Yes, and I'm looking for the car rental place, and I have no idea where to go. So he walked me to it, and
Yes.
then we realized I had no place to sleep for the night. And so we met so that's when we met the other guy, and he says, "Oh, I have a sleeping bag and a front lawn." So my first night of not having a place to go, I slept on a stranger's front lawn in a sleeping bag.
That's
And
nice.
um
It's a
yeah,
it's
and
it's a Southern California. It's nice and warm. It's kind of like a really cool thing that the universe provided for you.
yeah, because it's a beautiful area, and I ended up meeting another really great guy, and he had a broken down BMW at the beach, and
I
he had been
remember
sleeping
this.
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And so he had been sleeping in it, but he needed to go to the homeless shelter for a while. So I ended up sleeping in this broke down convertible BMW on little ski beach that allows people to camp their broken down. They might not now anymore. but I was right on the beach. I got to lay in the sun during the day. I had a little bit of security at night and shelter. I had food. I had a shower there, nice hot shower and bathroom.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I had a plug-in available so that I could get a phone and charge it and keep it charged so I could start communicating with my family.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Wow. Wow. Speaking of wow and amazing, we have with us a very special guest today. So, first of all, I know this is a quick segue, but thank you so much for sharing that story. We are gingerly entering this arena where each show, Darla get to share a story from her own experience of going through psychosis and then uh, crawling her way back out, and I mean crawling sometimes, and it's a hard road, but here we are. And so thank you so much for that story, and along with that, that's a great segue to bring in our special guest today. Do you want to introduce her, Donna?
I would love to introduce Nicole. I can never pronounce her last name. Could you do that for me?
Huguenin.
You got Nin.
Huguenin,
Huguenin.
right?
Hi, Nicole. I was just introducing you. This is my sweet, sweet, sweet friend
Our.
and
Don't you claim her all
our.
to
Yes,
yourself.
I can't disclude name. Yes. Sweet, sweet. Oh, long, long friendship that we have had with beautiful Nicole. And one of my favorite things about introducing Nicole today is that she is so passionate about working with the homeless. And she's in Maui, and that's where she does her big, big homeless work. It's so powerful. And while visiting with her this past year, I got to experience um, some helping out of the beautiful projects of taking care of the homeless that Nicole has really led the way in that community. And a few of the things that I found so amazing about this experience of um, helping the homeless in this community day event was that they provided things that they really needed to get a hand up, things like washers and dryers to clean
Wow,
their
that's
clothes.
big things.
Yeah, a trailer that came to this location with washers and dryers so that they could wash their clothes. They had portable showers so they could take a nice hot shower with plenty of soap
And
and lots of
water.
food and water and resources, people that were there to help them, with mental health resources and housing resources and things that, maybe they didn't know how to tap into and couldn't advocate for themselves. So the community was brought to them to serve them, to help them, to guide them, hopefully, in some
Yeah.
areas that they don't know how to gain access to things for themselves. And
And
I just want to acknowledge Nicole for, really paving the path for that level of care of the homelessness. And I find it to just be transformational in your community, Nicole. So I'm
oh,
excited. I'm excited to hear about your expertise in working with the homeless and the challenging mental illnesses that can go along with it. And we'll be talking about some statistics today and some things that are really happening out there in the world. So I would
yeah.
love,
Hang on a second. Darla, can you look at your phone and turn down the volume so that, or turn off the notification so when it buzzes, it doesn't buzz into the recording?
oh, I haven't had any buzzes. That's interesting.
Oh, well, somebody's buzzing. Y- Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I
All
got the
right.
volume turned on just in case.
Okay, so Nicole is also a dear friend of mine. She's also, oh my gosh, we have many, many lifetimes of interaction together. I also got to stay at Nicole's home out in Maui this year, and I got to witness the more invisible work that Nicole does with the homeless there. She's constantly in touch. I mean, I don't even know the 1/10 of it, but she's constantly in touch. We would be driving around the island and she would be like, oh, that is so and so, and that's their, they're working on this, or that is whatever. So there's just like she's so in touch with the community. She knows what it's like. And this whole topic of homelessness and mental illness is something that Nicole faces every day. So that's why we're like, let's bring Nicole in here and let her tell us all the story that she sees out there. And I know that we only have 20-30 minutes, but you go, Nicole. Tell us. I mean, I don't even know where to start, really. I know you want me to ask you a question to start, but it's like, Nicole, when it comes to homelessness and mental illness, where should we start in the conversation?
We should start with, first of all, hi. Aloha, good morning. Let me get grounded for a second. I'm in my backyard. I am I'm on the land of Kanaka Maoris in the Ahupua'a of Waiʻohuli, and on Maui, Hawaii. So with that presence, though, I think the bigger picture. So personally, I am a systems thinker. And so even if I am sitting next to a unsheltered man that has not moved his body in a week, my brain, even unconsciously, is thinking about systems and prevention or problem solving, and also centering, like, I'm just sitting next to a man right now and being his friend, even if I'm not saying anything for an hour. And so that's a little bit about me in this particular type of work, which is only a little bit of my work. And I think in the systematic way, the bigger picture way, is the first thing we talk about is these are two separate topics that we are intersecting. And each topic, homelessness and mental illness, are so big, and there is no one answer. There is no one fix. It is in a lot of situations. And so I think my first thing to talk about is to request anybody that's listening to not listen for a solution, just listen and be in the conversation. Because there's no way, even if one of us shares a program that worked for one person, it's not going to work for the next person. So 2 big topics, expand your listeing, and then we can go. Now you can ask me questions.
Oh, that's beautiful. You answered just like a system thinker. I love it. I'm actually taking notes for us in our comment section now. Okay, so I really appreciate that that cautious against quick fix, listening for the quick fix, wanting to hear the quick fix, and because that is what Mai Vu want. And I see society wants to, because these two big subjects are so big and so uncomfortable and so detrimental, so scary, so sad, that we don't want to look at this. So we just want a quick fix so that we can move on to, the latest episode in Biggerton or whatever that stupid show is that everybody watches, and that kind of stuff, right? So there's no one quick fix. And so tell us, what is it? What are you seeing around mental illnesses and homelessness?
Sure. Let me also present too. It's not. Can I just say too? Like I've done this work in San Francisco, in Oakland, in Denver, Colorado, and now in Maui, Hawaii. It's not just Maui, and there's definitely differences in each. So I'll make sure to try to identify where that example is from, just so you know as we move forward. But go ahead.
Yeah,
Darla.
I have a question that kind of pings off of a conversation that we're having about the statistics around mental homelessness, actually, not mental illness. But one of the statistics is that 25% of homeless people are seriously mentally ill, as opposed to about 6% of the regular population, the non-homeless population, has mental illness. So that's a vast difference between 6% of the population versus 25% of our homeless population. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So historically, in the 1980s, the Reagan era administration, when really a lot of federally funded things were dismantled, and we started kind of that process to give more state control. In that process, the mental institutions were dismantled, and I have no idea. I was a young child. I've watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest, right? Like, no idea how awful and atrocious or great those institutions were, but I know that they were dismantled. And since then, there is not really an institutional place for those that are chronically mentally ill. Like, they will not recover. They will not, shift into, like, be able to function in normal. I don't even want to use the word normal, but they won't be able to function in society. There's not very many places to go if they can't stay with family, if they can't afford a private care, and so the streets are. Oftentimes, when I'm sitting with someone that can communicate, there's definitely people I've been with that cannot communicate. Like, they're not even in a conversation with you. But if I've sat with someone long enough and we get to a place where we can communicate, more often than not, I hear, I'd rather be outside than cause harm to my than cause harm to my family or cause harm to where I was staying, because the containment of, or like the thought of taking their meds all the time, that the meds that, we probably have a whole show about taking meds and mental illness, but
okay,
right? Like,
we should, yeah.
I've watched it happen. I've watched so many people start, they realize, like, okay, I've hit rock bottom. The crazy is too much on me. I'm going to start taking my meds. And then all of a sudden their whole body is 3 times the size than what they were, which causes a whole nother slew of physical ailments that then you get put on more medication, and there's no freedom in that, right? Like, and yeah, so I'm going to pause here because we could dive even deeper on that. But to answer your question, that's what started it. Really was the closing of large institutions that was a place that was in the government realm to provide care for those that are mentally ill. And then another aspect of that too is a lot of times, not a lot. Please call me on any absolutes or statements like that, because there's so many tangents we could take, or it's hard to know of that 25%, right, who has a chronic mental illness versus a mental illness that is enhanced by being on the streets, or started after they became homeless, because the trauma of being out on the streets is so much, and yeah, right. So it's hard to know where that is, yeah, it's interesting, and you might not ever know. Like, if you're in this, if you're serving, you don't, or you're supporting, you might not ever know. And I think, yeah. So I'm going to pause there and then we can jump into other things.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
It's slightly divergent but important. Is I I'm still back at the when I sit with a homeless person.
Mhm.
How does one develop the skill to sit with a homeless person? Like, what was it like the first time that you chose to sit with a homeless person? Like, there's a bunch of questions inside that question, right? How did one start? Is it safe? How do I respectfully sit with them? How do I? Is it, are they going to want money from me? I mean, there's so many questions, but so can we just like go back at the beginning? It's like, how do you start sitting with a homeless person?
Right. I'm intrigued by the story that Darla shared of just somebody was just there right for her. And then that led to another person that you got to sleep on their lawn. And I'm like, Darla, I'm like, wow, I thought that so many people have slept on my lawn. So, there's a few that have slept in my house. So it was trial and error. I mean, I've always been in, my formal education is in training, but I mean in teaching, and I've always been like conscious of who's around me and on my block and in my street. So when I lived in San Francisco, there was just this one guy that was always there sitting on the ground, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some food out, right? Do the very obvious things, the things that society tells us to do. And so I looked around and I had some apples. And so I think, Darla, I've told you this story before. And so I walk out with a few apples, and he just looks, he knew who I was because I would say hi when I was walking by, right? Every day to the bus stop. And he just smiles at me, like big smile. And he goes, honey, what's wrong with this picture? And I was like, what? I don't have any teeth to eat these apples with. Go back home and get me some bread.
Oh my God.
And he's like, if you're gonna do this, you need to. It's not about you. That's what he said. He's like, if you're gonna do this, it's not about you. And that
my God.
Yeah, I've carried that with me. So I went back and I brought out the full loaf of bread. I can't even eat bread, right? Somehow I had bread in my house, and I brought it back out. I'm like, would you like some peanut butter with that? And so that started a relationship, right? And for me, it's like just as any other friend, I'm not going to treat you any different. Like, I mean, he was, flirting's not the right word, but like there was that, it was like this banter is the right word, right? So I bantered back with him, and so having something to approach, like I also, though, you have to know what your strings are attached in this, in an engagement. If you just want to feel good because you're supposed to be being kind, right? You're supposed to be being kind. That means you have thought somebody has told you to be kind. There's too many strings there. And certain people, especially mentally ill people, will feel that energy, and they'll start vibrating, and it will not create a great situation. I've watched that happen over and over and over again. If you are wanting to be kind, right? Like you feel it in you. You're like, okay, I'm going to take something out. I want to take my leftover food or whatever. I have it. I'm going to take it out because I want to, or it just, like it's in the present moment. Then go do that. And then you start trial and error. Then you start living in the experience, right? And I have misstepped so many times. I have I've allowed boundaries to be crossed that I didn't even know I had. And even now, so right now at this current moment, I'm not out on the streets. I think that probably every once in a while I'll drop stuff off at the event that Darla shared about, or the Monday showers, which is run by an organization called Maui Rescue Mission. and connected with a collaboration that we started during the COVID shutdown. But I don't go out anymore. I have a personal boundary now. I was so depleted that I can't be, I'm no longer there. I can no longer go out with a clear heart. And when I do go out, I am depleted almost instantly. And so I won't go out, because if I do go out now, I bring more of the, it's not harm, it's, I bring more of my own depletion than I do any of my love and care. So I've made a very conscious choice, and this is hard, right? Like this was, I mean, I was out 3, 4, 5 days a week and sitting for hours, right? Sometimes with the same person. So that's some, you know, like being really in touch with yourself of like, where am I, and where, you know, what's going on, and listening, and then making hard choices. That's a bigger picture, right? Like I'm in the
Yes.
I'm in the industry. I'm trained. I am, but I'm also not paid. I'm not with an agency. So I have to be really clear about, okay, I can't spend all my time out here. I gotta go, you know, run the
Earn a
business.
living.
Yeah, I've got a business.
I gotta buy groceries.
I gotta go out on a date, like, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, it's like, oh my God, you know, how many years have I known you? And even just what you just said there, I learned so much more about you and your world. And anyway, okay, so let's go back to this big topic of homelessness and mentally ill. What's the second thing? Like, there's so many things that we can talk about and bring attention to. So can you just take a breath and look inside and find what is it that we need to hear today about homelessness and mentally ill, that relationship, or the people, and what they need, or what do we need to know?
I think one of the things that, you know, if I get calls, I get a lot of people call me and say like, oh, there's this guy and I just keep seeing him, but I'm scared to go approach that person. Or there's been a couple of times where somebody's called and said like, oh, there's this, you know, this person like came at me in my car and my kids were in there and I don't particularly want to call the cops. Is there anything I can do for this person? Right. And it's really hard to say, don't be fearful. But I wish there was a lot less fear. I wish there was a lot less blame. You know, I know here on Maui, there was recently a homicide, and there was one particular mentally ill man that was like blamed publicly. I think, I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of rumors going around, but this person's like catatonic and does not move. But it was blamed for like a really atrocious homicide, and it's like, really, like,
And I'm really familiar with this particular man because he was in an area that I spent a lot of time with, and literally all he ever did was sit there silently and with an appearance of meditating, and maybe he had an apple nearby.
yeah.
Sometimes people would drop him off
He
a
had
little
teeth
water,
then.
but he what? He had teeth.
Yeah,
I never saw them because he didn't smile, but
right.
yeah.
So there's, I
He
think
didn't
it's
move.
yeah, I think you know, I think a part of me that's I'm supposed to say, be kind. I like, just like I said, I'm supposed to say, be kind, go take your stuff out to them. But I've also been on the other end of that, right? Like because I do spend more time, right? Like I spent 4 years with one particular man at least twice a week, and we were just friends. we would talk, like he went to college and maybe Russian literature or something. And so I would like bring him Lolita or some book, like I would bring him books and we would sit and talk about it. Or he was also very much into guitar. And so we actually got him a guitar with his own money. We got him a guitar. And so we would sit and play guitar or watch videos on YouTube and just do what friends, like friends do when you're hanging out. And that particular person is not going anywhere. Everybody has tried, and I can safely say I got the closest to getting him to move from where he is, laying down on the ground. I can safely say that. And he's not going anywhere. And so like if you decide to go out and be kind and practice that kindness for yourself, not for, not because the world has told you you're supposed to do this. If you're like you in your present moment, you respond to that, you're not going to fix anybody. Your kindness might not be like, there's no amount of kindness that will change somebody's mental state. There is no amount of kindness that will get somebody off the street. It's a lot deeper than that. Like it's so deeper than that. And it's not your friendship. Like for me, it's like, I can say all the time, like I really truly believe like consistency, showing up over and over again, creating an anchor point of functionality could help somebody. No, there's so many other things. Like, I know maybe Darla, this is where you come in and say like, what brought you back from psychosis? Was it a person? Probably not. I mean, there was like people that were lives. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, my outreach when I could just barely advocate for myself was just glimpses of reality where I go, oh, this is what's happening. I need help right now. And that would be a very fleeting moment and thought. So, it can look different ways. And sure, reaching out and saying, are you okay? Can I help you with anything? Do you need anything? Might trigger somebody to have a moment of reality, but I think those moments of reality come at different times on their own, and there is no real prediction of when that moment, that breakthrough moment might happen so that somebody can be helped, get help.
Right. And that moment, like is exactly that. I've been around for those moments, and an hour, 2 days later, a month later, it like the psychosis comes back, right? And so there's so much on it, like detachment that goes into this work. I think I want to shift a little bit too, though, of talking to maybe about like creating like webs of support and anchor points and
okay,
maybe some stories. I'm not quite sure, I think too, like it's so hard for families, when somebody's in a psychosis, and then on top of that, homeless. And families have a lot of attachments, right? So there's so, like that, and that's they should. That's what, like the things that binds families. And sometimes the family can hold a person, and but usually I think it's more like if a family has a lot of money, they can send that person to a very expensive place that has streams where the person can walk and all that sort of stuff. But that's not the normality. It's just not normal. And And so oftentimes, like, I know for me, it's like I would get in touch with the family and just let them know, like, this person's okay. That they are in psychosis right now. Like, just, sharing reality, not sharing, this is what we can do. Like, I think sometimes that energy of, like, that fixing energy causes more of it to like,
Right. I know for me, like it was a real trigger when people would say, "I'm worried about you." It was such a trigger for me. Like, I'm so worried about you. And it felt so sympathetic or, pity, and it didn't feel good. And it would trigger something in me to push them away. I was
and I
like, fuck you. I don't need your pity. I'm worried about you.
yeah,
It didn't feel good. And everybody has their different, triggers or,
right,
things that happen where they do push the family away and do isolate more because that's what's comfortable
yeah,
because of the delusions. The delusions are driving that person. And maybe the delusions are about their family and friends. I know that was
right,
true for me, where everybody was a clone or a vampire, who knows, but they were all out to kill me. And
yeah,
so, it's hard to sit with that, as you're saying, because you don't know. And sometimes we have our own agenda of I'm going to fix you. And
right,
you're exactly right on that, where you've got to meet that person in the place they're at. And I just really value your insight and your consciousness about staying with that person where they are,
yeah,
and knowing that you can't fix everything or everyone.
yeah,
And it's okay to try to support and be there. And we all
right,
have to have our own boundaries and self-care when helping people with mental illness,
right.
whether it's family, friends, or a community service. It's a big
Yeah.
task.
I think, like, it's maybe one thing if we're inclined to support people, or if we're in a family environment where, like your family, right, Darla? It's
Yeah.
one tool that we can help people with is, like, expand your timelines here. Um, I know for me, it's like I would say to politicians, not going to get solved on your watch. Like, you're on a 2 or 4 year cycle here, and this is not a two. This timeline is
This
like, it's
is
not like this.
decades of problems
Yeah,
that were problematic before the decades of problems.
right. And so,
We've never had a good system for this.
yeah, we really have not. And so it's, you know, working on yourself to be detached. It's also thinking about, what would I rather have here? Like, would I rather have I mean, I think about this all the time. Like, would I rather have be putting certain people, forcing them into a mental institution that's probably wildly unfunded, and has high turnover rate, that, doesn't provide consistency, and has crap food from the, from, worse than cafeteria. Well, some cafeteria
Well,
better, but, like,
that's
it's
like a prison, right? I mean, we call it mental health uh, facility, but really, it's a cheap prison, or highly, or an expensive prison. I don't know how the money get manipulated here, but so then thinking about it, I mean, I from the homeless person's perspective, they're like, shit, if I'm gonna be stuck in freaking prison shithole where I can't even see the outside and feel the cold air, I'd rather die on the street or somebody's lawn, or, on the beach. Let it be my last night there than to be stuck in a so-called health facility that you guys put together, underfunded, under budget, and under care, right? So there's that dilemma in the picture too.
right. Right. Which
Yeah.
is like the homeless point. And and here in Hawaii, over half of the homeless are Hawaiians. And I know, one of my best friend's dad, like he left his family. He left his family. He left a construction job because I would consider that my best friend and his dad a separate friend. Every once in a while we can all three come together, but the dad he's like, this is the only place where I can actually practice my culture. And he just weaves on the side of a beach. And, so we just check in on Uncle, like he's fine. And then there's other folks that are not okay, right? And luckily that uncle's out there keeping an eye on folks, and he then can say to me like, hey, this person really needs a house tonight. This person, we really got to get to the showers. Like they need to wash it off. This person really needs to get in touch with their family. And I pay attention to him and others like him because they're out there and they've got a pulse. Like their friendships are way like they have created, I hate using the word they, but like there is this unseen web of support in the community itself, and a lot of taking care of. There's also a dark side to that because there's also a lot of stealing, especially when we bring in the topic that will blow all of this to a whole other proportion, which is meth and heroin.
Oh God.
So let's not do that.
Drug addiction and homelessness, a whole nother topic.
Whole nother topic. But in just a general sense, there is a web there, and it's a very resilient, like I would say some folks are unsheltered, some of the most resilient people that I know. So is there hope? Is there hope here? I know there are tent cities being erected and have like taken over other cities. I also was a history teacher, so I know this isn't the first time that has happened. It's happened many times before. And I think there's a lot of room for growth. I think there's a lot of room for care and kind of expanding care, your understanding and education around what care is, beyond just fixing a problem, or what we deem a problem. And I know that there's a lot of opinions. And I do know that I do know because I know you, Darla, and I know several other people, right? Like Darla's whole story is filled with care from Mai, from family, from a whole slew of people that just kind of held this bigger container for you to kind of just have your psychosis in. And then there was a lot of letting go of that container, right? And I know
it was this whole like global coming together of people that I knew, and I was so supported to like just be in this, like Mai says, this crazy state of mind where I just was all over the place, and people allowed me to be, and then also tried to help when they could, but it's exhausting and it's exasperating, and it's such a tough role to be in.
Yes. And so on the like let me share a flip story of that, right, too. Like I had a friend have a friend in Denver that I met at the library. And Denver is an interesting place to talk about the homeless. So the library actually, instead of making it more of a problem because it became this, it just naturally, in the way things panned out became this beacon, this anchor point for the homeless. They can go and use free computers. They can pass time. It's air conditioned or heated. And so instead of pushing it away and saying, no, this is a problem, they embraced it. And they hired social workers. They have like a whole floor. My friend is a writer and a poet. So he's a poet, really. And they created a Tuesday writers called the Street Hard Knocks Writing Club. And they every Tuesday. And those become anchor points, right? And so I met my friend in 2014, 2013 at the library. And in that meeting, he came out on one of my walks, right? A Whole Nother Life with Nicole. And then as I started to get to know him, I realized, okay, he's homeless. He's an alcoholic. There is some mental illness here. And I just was friends with him. And we explored a lot of boundaries. There was definitely a point in his sobriety where he was on my couch for a while, and then he was no longer sober, right? And so I had to, much like a lot of family members, have to figure out what that is for me. And there was one point where I was moving away. I was moving to Maui, and he was in a total like the worst alcoholic like spin of that I had ever seen him on, like binge. And and he called me and he was saying things that just like, come on, friend, come on. And I lost it. And I have never, ever, ever screamed. Like I felt like I actually like left my body, and I was just screaming at him like, you're an alcoholic. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. And I had let go of the friendship. I completely just like, this is the boundary. But I had spent years being his friend, and I had to let go. So I'm wanting to share a good story. Right? So I then am here on Maui for several years, and I get an email from him, and the email says he's sober. He had gone, I don't remember the whole story, but he had gone, he had a physical emergency, and somehow in that particular going to the hospital, that particular one, there was some other program that was offered to him. And this program is multi-year, housing, job, and he was able to do it. And he's in his 18th month of sobriety and clearness. And so we talk. He calls me. We have a standing date on the 28th of the month on his soberversary, and we talk and catch up. And what he told me actually just in the last month or so, he sent an email because he'd watched a video him and I had created in Union Station together. And he was like, oh my God, I was so far gone. And I had no clue how far gone I was at that point in time. Watching it now, I realized how far gone I was. And then I looked at you, and you were talking to the me of today. You were not talking to the far gone guy. You were talking to the person that you knew I was. You were talking to the poet in me. You were talking to the creative in me, to the businessman in me. And he was like, so when I finally was open to doing that, I realized that I did have one person that believed in who I was, that wasn't just engaging with me as a homeless person and an alcoholic. And so, and that circles back to May, like, how do you, the first question you ask, right? And for me, that's a natural thing that I've cultivated over many years, and I've fucked it up a lot of times. I've absolutely created harm, and I've had to, and when you're in these situations, you can't always rectify that harm you've created. I'm gonna own that, and then, but I'm also gonna own, like, there's something that you can hold for people, which is love and care, and seeing who they are, and then doing everything in your power to be in the present moment with that person.
Beautiful, Nicole.
That's a
That's a
lovely
beautiful way to kind of
end this
come to
conversation
a
for now.
close.
For now, yeah, we
Yeah,
could go for hours and hours.
Right?
we could.
Thank you so much for today's conversation. It's so tender and spacious. Tender in the sense of you don't just come in full of rage or righteousness. You're not angry at society. You're not angry at the government. You're not angry at the homelessness. You're not, right? You're not.
Yeah.
Good job recovering and healing and return to full instead of running from depletion. And you
Taking care of
made
yourself
space.
so beautifully.
Yeah, and you made space for us to sit with you, to touch this challenging topic, this endless, hopeless sometimes topic, and I really appreciate it. I don't want to say I had a great time. I had a very touching time being here with you today. So thank you.
Let's leave the audience too,
Yes.
because I get a lot of I do get a lot of people that call and say, what am I supposed to do? Right? Is this a topic? And I want to send a lot of acknowledgement to my friends that actually, like, their job is serving the homeless. It's a hard job. And people want them to fix it. Like, that's their tax dollars. Let's, like, so they want it to be fixed. And we don't, we don't want tent cities on the side of our streets. However, we also don't want to fund other solutions. So we're in a stalled place. So I am happy wherever you are in the world. I'm happy to sit with anybody that's trying to figure out what they can do. I'm happy to help you find the agencies that you might volunteer for. I don't particularly, if you're going to take your leftover food, take it. But I do definitely think, we're not isolated individuals. We are part of a collective. So, do your work, find an agency. Not all of them are going to fit. It's just like dating, right? Like, same with the therapist. You got to date your therapist and find the right one that fits for you. You got to date the nonprofits, find the one that fits for you and the time you have and what you want to do. If you want to do anything, sometimes it might be just stuffing envelopes for mailers to get more money, and that is what they need, right? But I'm happy to sit with anybody. I'm happy to sit with family members that are going through it. I think any one of us on this call would.
I'm an expert.
Right. Yeah. Like, we've all been there, right? And in some type of lived experience between the three of us, we've got a lot of the situational kind of lived experiences, various levels of it.
Yeah,
So,
from all different little angles, right? From providing care to having illness to loving and supporting. I mean, Mai did that for my family in a huge way.
Yeah.
We are so available and so accessible. You can find me on Instagram at Bold Brave Woman, or go to Facebook and look for Mai Vu Coach. You can find Darla on Instagram at My Brains and Asshole, at My Brains and Asshole, or Darla Mersman or Cresserell. You got to fix this one.
That's okay, on Facebook, but also, my Facebook group, which is also My Brains and Assholes. So Instagram, Facebook, same name.
Yeah. And then Nicole, how do they find you, Nicole?
though I'm around. Just kidding.
Top secret.
I'm on Instagram. I think it's just my name and our hugs.
And our hugs.
Yeah.
It's not just, she shows us, she throws it away. Anyway, if you want to find Nicole, you just contact me and I'll find Nicole for you.
Yeah, I'll find the link to send it over. But yeah.
Anyway, have a wonderful day, everyone. May you all, no matter what life circumstance is, be well supported, as a web of anchor point to support you, and to always have someone in your life that sees you and remember who you truly are when you forget that in yourself, and also do that for others. Pass it on.
Pass it on.
That is the word for today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. Come back anytime. We will drag you back in again in the future.
You have so much to share. Thank you, Nicole. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Mai. Yes.
Most
Bye.
welcome. Bye.